Greetings, Ship Amelia. Welcome back to the latinXfactor, Sharpening Your Professional Edge program. I'm Dora Renaud, Senior Director of Academic Programs for Ship National. Tonight is our third webinar, Growing an Entrepreneurial Mindset, which focuses on discovering ways to tap into your capacity and ability to utilize an entrepreneurial mindset in school as a student or in your organization as a young professional. Our presenter today is no stranger to the SHIP convention. Dr. Dorn Carranza has played an important role in supporting our Technology and Innovation Conference at the National Convention. Dorn is the Director of Innovation and Industrial Partnerships for VentureWell. He achieved this with a unique cross-disciplinary background and specialties including innovation processes, ecosystems, policy, and programs management. He has a deep innovation strategy and operational experience in a broad base of science and engineering-based industries and local and regional innovation ecosystems. Dorn's passion is in enabling innovators around the world to realize their untapped potential. He is a national advocate for diversity, inclusion, and broadening participation of underrepresented students and professionals in STEM and the innovation economy. So without further ado, I'll pass over the mic to Dr. Dorn Carranza.
Thank you, Dora, and thank you, SHIP, for the opportunity to present today to the SHIP community. It's a real pleasure and an honor. So let's move into the presentation quickly. As Dora indicated, with VentureWell, we are a nonprofit organization that fosters innovation and entrepreneurship in higher education, in STEM, and at large in the US, supporting not only students, faculty, university administrators, but also in general, startups and all the stakeholders in the US supporting more innovation and more entrepreneurship. So with that in mind, I'm gonna move quickly into my presentation from today, which is titled Growing an Entrepreneurial Mindset. This is probably gonna be the first time for many of you listening a presentation about entrepreneurship and innovation in the context of your majors. And we'll have an opportunity at the end to answer any questions that are relevant to your specific backgrounds and disciplines. But let me start with a quick summary on who will benefit from this presentation. So this presentation is mainly focused on helping students and professionals pursuing a job in industry. And those individuals we call Intrapreneurs. Also students and professionals pursuing a job in academia, and those we know as academic innovators, or pursuing a job in government, and they are called a civic innovator, or pursuing a job in a tech startup, and they can be CTOs or in the common jargon known as hustlers. Or they can be thinking about starting their own tech company for which they can become CEOs of their tech startups, or become tech entrepreneurs. So this presentation is going to try to address questions. It's going to try to address ways you as a student or young professional can start a career or gain expertise or gain experiences to become one of these individuals. So, and before I move into the core of the presentation, I want to make a case for why I personally believe Latinx or Hispanics or Latinos in general have very specific traits and natural skills to be successful tech entrepreneurs. And I'm referring here to a presentation from a couple of months ago by Fernando Rosario, who explained how we have some cultural competencies that makes us unique, and he referred to these specific traits that he called empathy or personalismo, or being able to be ingenious, or have a team mentality, or be resilient, or be adaptable, or be driven by relationships, or be a hard worker, or be humble. And I think these are very natural traits among Hispanics that, plus your engineering degree, is a perfect formula for a successful tech innovator or tech entrepreneur. And as an example of that, I want to, for example, mention a friend and colleague, Elias Torres, who, as many of you, was a student in computer science and computer engineering, who worked for IBM for 10 years and then became a CEO of his own company, founder of his own company called Drift. That is currently a company that is growing fast. They have raised $70 million. But the point is that, you know, he was a student or a young professional, as many of you listening to this presentation, and combining his natural traits that he brought as a Hispanic or Latino, plus his engineering degree. For him, it was just a simple process to become a successful tech innovator and tech entrepreneur. But talking about innovation, the first thing we need to start thinking about is what is innovation? What do we mean by innovation? And one thing that I want to tell you is that don't be surprised by the many definitions of innovation. Here we have a few definitions that you may have heard or that you are probably thinking about that go from just the basic application of ideas that are novel or useful to perhaps something more complex that means, for example, a constant search of value and creation of value. But with that in mind, please consider this description or this definition of innovation, which is the one that I used. And one thing that I hope stays as a message for you that you can take home is that innovation is a process. Innovation, at least the way that many professionals see it now, is not a thing. You know, a thing can be innovative. You know, you can have or you can create innovative things, innovative materials or tools or gadgets. But innovation in itself is a process. And as such, the definition of innovation that many professionals use nowadays is that it's a process of creating value by applying novel solutions to meaningful problems. So this has a lot of meaning, especially these four words that are process, value, solutions, and problems. And throughout the presentation today, we're gonna go into more detail and try to understand what we mean by process, by value, by solutions, and by problems. So in that context, the first thing we need to understand is that creativity is not innovation. Ideas, coming up with ideas or just ideas is not innovation. But if you apply a process to those ideas and you demonstrate, you figure out how to create value out of those ideas, that is innovation. So ideas plus a process that helps you understand, helps you articulate, helps you show value, that is innovation. And in the next slide, we're going to see then an example of a process that we can use that perhaps some of you are familiar to be able to go through this process of innovation. This is a framework created at Stanford. It's called design thinking that many of you may have heard or are familiar with. And it's a simple process that helps you go from an idea to something that you can test, something tangible that you can create and you can begin to test. And the process starts with empathy and starts with empathizing with people, empathizing with customers, empathizing with users to be able to understand how they are feeling, what problems they are facing, what challenges they are facing. And then start defining that in a way that it will help you come up with solutions that are relevant to real, critical, and relevant problems. And in that same process, continue to begin to understand and to ideate and to prototype solutions that will address those problems. And finally, a process that will help you test those solutions, test those ideas in the process of coming up with a real valuable solution. So in that context, we can see that innovation then is a learning process, and is a non-linear learning process. That the most important thing to remember is that it's not about you. We come up. I mean, we come up with ideas every time, every day. But bringing those ideas to something that creates value, that shows value, is what we are talking about today. And it's all about the user. It's all about the people that will benefit from those ideas, that the process of innovation is about. And this diagram here shows that although we can very simply come up with ideas, those ideas need to be framed in the context of people that are expecting a solution, or people that will benefit from those ideas. In the design thinking space, this framework can help you go from understanding the problems, defining the problems, beginning to come up with some ideas or potential solutions to those problems, a prototype solutions to those problems that initially can be just on paper, and then test those ideas, but keeping in mind that it's from the customer's, from the customer's perspective, from the beneficiary's perspective, from the user's perspective. So here, what I want to share with you are a few resources that can be helpful for you to understand if you are interested in this topic of, for example, design thinking as a process to understand how you can innovate, how can you go from just an idea to something that you can explain, can create value, can create benefits to those, for example, facing a problem, or for those that your idea will be relevant or useful or valuable. The first book is by Tom Kelly. Tom Kelly is the founder of IDEO, is a consulting group, and pretty much they started running projects for Apple. And nowadays, IDEO is one of the biggest design companies in not only in California, but in the world. A really, really good material for you to review. The next book is by Tina Seelig. Inside Out is a really interesting book by Tina, who is a professor at Stanford. She teaches innovation and design. And in her book, she stresses and she presents part of her material that she teaches at Stanford on how to go from an idea to reality. The next book is by Tim Brown, who is actually the current president of IDEO. And in his book, he describes design thinking as a way of a methodology that even companies or corporations can use to come up with new solutions to problems. And finally, design thinking by Nigel Cross, who is a British professor who pretty much formalized the field of design thinking. So these are 4 really good resources for anyone that is interested in understanding innovation, the process of innovation, and design thinking as one of those processes that you can apply to bring your ideas to something tangible, something that can create value. But in that process, we mentioned before that the process of innovation starts with empathizing with customers, with users, with people that typically have a need, typically have a problem, or something that they expect. So my recommendation for those of you that are interested in exploring innovation, entrepreneurship within your disciplines, is to initially and before anything understand the major challenges, the major problems that you have in your classroom, at your university, on campus, in your community, in your state, in your country, or wherever you think that you'll be interested in taking a role in solving those problems. And typically, those major challenges are things that make you uncomfortable, things that you would like to figure out solutions to contribute with approaches and ways to solve. And it's a very simple exercise. If you think that you don't have any idea, many times we complain, well, I don't have any idea, I don't know how to start. I would like to do something, but I don't have an idea. If that's the case, look at your surroundings and think about what challenges are we facing as a society. And this diagram here shows, for example, major challenges in the areas of transportation, population, shelter, food supply, energy, environmental health, natural resources, economy, communication. And all of those are areas that some of your majors and disciplines will be key in figuring out solutions that might be technical or innovative. So again, with this slide, what I want to say to you is that if you don't have an idea, if you want to practice, if you want to start, creating some experiences around this innovation process, you can look at your surroundings and think and identify, some of the major challenges or grand challenges that you would like to start understanding. So with that also, I want to share with you that this concept of understanding problems is very important for the reason that I think many of us feel very proud of saying that we are problem solvers. But that is not enough. For many years, decades, people felt proud to even put in their resumes that they are problem solvers. But what companies are now turning to do and to hire are mainly problem seekers. Employees, young professionals, engineers, or any new hire in general that will be able to see problems of the markets, of the communities that the company is part of, and hire those individuals that will be able to see those problems, will be able to frame those problems, will be able to articulate those problems in a way that the company can create solutions, can create products, and become more competitive. And as Einstein used to say, if he has an hour to solve a problem, he would spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and only 5 minutes thinking about solutions. Because that's a real concern, that's a real issue nowadays in entrepreneurship and innovation, that many times we jump too quickly into the solution space without having given too much thought and understanding of the problems that we are trying to solve. And if we don't see it, we don't know the problems, the real and actual problems we want to solve, then the solutions would not be viable. So now that you know that, in the innovation process, one of the first steps is to understand problems, to understand and to be able to articulate those problems. One key element is empathy, and using your engineering empathy. And as Fernando, a presenter from 2 months ago, used to say, personismo or personalismo. This means understanding individuals, understanding people. Because if we say, there's a problem, that problem many times is associated to people. If a company has a problem, that those problems are associated to problems that the leadership team, problems that managers, problems that employees are facing. Or if we say, a society is facing problems, typically it's individual or individuals that are facing those problems. So use your traits as Hispanics and Latinos, that we are very approachable and empathetic, and with that understand how people feel, how people identify themselves with problems and expect solutions to those problems. So then, moving from the problem space to the solution space, you will see that there are now frameworks and ways to start thinking about solutions, right? We have said that we can and we should spend enough time understanding problems, but once we have identified, let's say, major problems that we want to solve, once we have understood the problem and being able to articulate what the problem is, there are tools that we can start using to be able to figure out or at least propose some solutions to those problems. And one of those frameworks is this value proposition canvas. A value proposition canvas is a very simple tool. Basically, is what you are seeing on your screens. that helps you understand from the problem side, from the customer or user or beneficiary perspective, what are their pains, what are the gains that they expect and then they are not able to get, and typically what are their jobs, jobs that they're trying to do and that they are not able to do. And with that in mind, start building a value proposition that will contain some, what the theory says, pain relievers or gain creators or products or services to address those pains, needs, and jobs that customers are trying to do. And once we understand those elements, the first thing that we can start doing is articulating value. And to articulate value, there are also tools like this one that is a value proposition ad lib. And this value proposition ad lib basically tells you that you can use this template to start articulating how you are creating value for a group of people, how you can create value for a group of companies or for an individual company. And an example of this will be, our or mine, solution or mine product or mine service or my idea will help a specific group of people, will help a company, will help a market, will help a community who want to, in this case, for example, achieve a specific goal or do a specific job by perhaps reducing the pains that they are facing and increasing the expectations and achieving the needs that they have, but also doing that in a very unique way, unlike any other solution that perhaps is not addressing their problems. So this tool is available online. Anyone can use it. If you Google value proposition canvas or value proposition, you'll come across many examples and references on how, once you have identified a problem, once you have identified an idea that you want to create a solution, you can use this to start testing these ideas against people and basically telling people, this is what I think I can do for you. This is the value I think I can create for you, and therefore start validating or invalidating the ideas that you have in terms of solutions. So here there are a couple of books that I would recommend anyone interested in understanding how to articulate value can review. And the first book is by Alex Osterwalder. And Alex is pretty much a thought leader in the innovation space. And this book will give you a step-by-step on how to create value propositions for your ideas. Very good resource. Even it comes with a workbook that you can use to start practicing how to articulate ideas or how to articulate value for the ideas, solutions that you have. And then next to it is a book by Clay Christensen. He's a professor at Harvard University. And basically the value of this book is that Clay, who actually coined the term disruptive innovation, in this book, Competing Against Luck, he explains what a job is for customers, or the way that he frames it is called jobs to be done. And in the book, he explains that most people are always trying to do a job, or even tools and services do a job for the reason that they have been created for. And you can see that in a way that, for example, a hammer is being created to do a job for us, and we hire a hammer to perhaps help us with some work at home, or even a coffee machine, right? We created a coffee machine to make coffee, and we as individuals many times hire a coffee machine to make coffee for us. And similarly, he explains that in different ways and for different industries and different applications. But basically, the point is that in the innovation process, we as innovators and we as people that are looking to create value, many times need to look at those jobs and need to see or figure out how we can create value in a way that it will do those jobs for people. If you think about now, for example, autonomous cars, right? We had, transportation has been a job forever, right? From many thousands of years ago, where we used to use horses or camels, to now that we use cars and perhaps in the future autonomous cars, but the concept is that the innovators, so the people behind those developments, are basically creating cars that we will hire to do jobs for us, and that job is to transport us, to transport our families to places. So bottom line with what I'm trying to tell you here is that it's an important concept to understand, within any discipline, within any work that you are doing, what are those jobs that you are doing for people? What are the jobs of the tools? What are the jobs of the products? What are the jobs of the resources that you are trying to create as a key component in the innovation process? The next thing that I want to address and start telling you about is this concept of innovation versus entrepreneurship. You may have seen at your university or perhaps in your communities that there are centers that do innovation and entrepreneurship, or they are called a innovation and entrepreneurship center. You may have heard the term innovator and entrepreneur, together or separate. But so far in this presentation, we have discussed innovation as a process. We have talked about innovation starting with understanding a problem, using a framework like design thinking to begin to come up with solutions to those problems, and being able to use even frameworks like this value proposition canvas to articulate the value that we are trying to create. And that is just innovation as a process, but it doesn't stop there. If we really want to create value, we need to deliver that value, right? And delivering that value is what entrepreneurship is about. And specifically, being able to make things happen, being able to have the diligence, the discipline, the perseverance to bring those ideas and to make impact is what entrepreneurship is about. So some people may argue that then innovation is basically the process of matching problems with solutions and articulating solutions to major problems, and then entrepreneurship is a way of bringing that value in the hands of people, or making impactful solutions, or making impact once we reach people. These two books are very relevant and important in that process, in a sense that it helps us understand how we can transition from traditional scientists or traditional engineers to becoming then innovators or entrepreneurs. Particularly the book by Noah Wasserman. He's a professor at the University of Southern California. Explains the dilemma that we typically face when we are students and we are at a point that we need to decide, do I take a job at a company? Do I join a tech startup? Or do I just start my own company? Those are things that I have faced. I've been in those three different situations in different times in my life, having to choose between joining a big company or joining a startup or starting my own company. And the book is very, very practical. It even talks about details like, for example, having a validation and confirmation with from family to be able to take and to make decisions in a space that is so unknown for many of us, like it is entrepreneurship and innovation. And the book by Stephen Gould, Entrepreneur's Notebook, Steven is a professor, was a professor at Babson College, one of the leading colleges in the US in entrepreneurship. And this book basically explains the steps of creating a startup by professionals in any discipline that you can imagine. So we said at some points in our lives we are debating, whether to join a company or to start our own company, or even to join a startup. And the term intrapreneurship then is important to discuss, and particularly the difference between being an entrepreneur and an intrapreneur. Just to highlight the difference, or the main difference, which is, we can use our innovative skills. We can apply the concepts of innovation and practices of innovation in companies, and those people are called intrapreneurs. Or we can use the same skills and just decide not to join a company and do it ourselves, and then those people are called entrepreneurs. But one important thing here to mention is that entrepreneurship is a calling, is not just a job. I've seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of students that go into entrepreneurship thinking that it's just a job that they'll be able to do for a few months or a few years, and then enjoy the returns of that. But it's more than that, and is as I said here, a calling, something that you are getting into because you have that passion, you have that lifestyle to becoming an entrepreneur. But with that in mind, it's also important to say that it does not prevent you from having the experience or trying to become an entrepreneur. And we're going to talk about this later today, but there are many resources, there are many activities on campus or at the national level that as a student, undergrad student, grad student, postdoc, or even as a young professional, you can take advantage and start getting the experience of becoming an entrepreneur. And many companies now, more than ever, have internships and have ways for you to start practicing your innovative skills or entrepreneurial skills within their corporations, and creating a career for you as an intrapreneur. So then, what is this entrepreneurial mindset? That was the title of the presentation. And one thing that I hope comes across here is that just the idea of creating value, is not enough. It's not all, right? So we said we need to deliver that value into the hands of people. We need to deliver that value so that it impacts, society. It impacts individuals. And it's because of that this concept of entrepreneurial mindset is a set of skills and behaviors that typically help us deliver that value, that initially perhaps help us see problems and opportunities and apply creativity and innovation and bring resources together, but most importantly, help us deliver value. And that is what an entrepreneur does. And especially if we say that we want to cultivate an entrepreneurial mindset, is something we need to have in mind and typically nurture. So, and also important to say here that you may know, or you may have heard that this trait or quality of being an entrepreneur is something that some people are born with. But based on my experience, I can tell you that it's typically something that can be nurtured. It's typically that something that students can practice, can learn when they are in school, and then continue to learn during their professional lives, and then perhaps later in life become a successful entrepreneur. A couple of interesting books here to mention are this book by Rita Gunter. The Entrepreneurial Mindset is amazing. It's a really good book for anyone that wants to understand entrepreneurial mindset in the context of multiple disciplines, multiple stages in your professional life, and multiple situations. And similarly, this book by Stephen Gold again on how to succeed, and the power of smart experiments. It's a really good resource for anyone interested in understanding how to cultivate an entrepreneurial mindset at any time in your lives. So going back to the topic of creating and delivering value, what I'm going to show you here is this simple process that basically is one of the first steps in creating a company. We talk about understanding problems, coming up with ideas, testing those ideas, using design thinking, using the value proposition canvas to start articulating your ideas, but that is just at the idea stage, right? So we need to bring that to practice, and experiments like these are simple experiments that many of you may have noticed or experienced in a class or research lab or research experience, or even within a capstone course. And that basically is, bringing it to practice, bringing your idea or solution that you have tested against users or the market or beneficiaries, and measure, measure what you are doing and what you are creating and learning from that. And the three images that you see here are actually real, from a real case of a group of students that developed a dye to be able to turn chlorine from transparent to blue. And they did created several experiments to figure out how to do that, measure that actually in Africa, to the point that at the end they were able to formulate a product that as students they were able to bring to market. And this is just to show you here how a group of 3 students from Columbia University developed this simple product, were able to patent it, were able to apply all the concepts I mentioned before, to the point of creating their own company. And just last week I was told that they are selling the company for $4 million after having done successful testings and trials and creating markets both in the US and overseas. And the other important point to remember here and to see here is that this idea of entrepreneurship is not a solo game. It's a team sport. It's something that if you are thinking that you can do on your own, it's going to be difficult, if not impossible. But if you can think of peers and colleagues and a team that you can start, thinking as complement to your skills, is the best way to do. So entrepreneurship is not a solo sport, but a team sport. So then moving just quickly into more of the entrepreneurship language, you are probably going to hear a lot about products, markets, businesses, but it's simple. It's simple. And the point that I want to make here is that when you hear product, market, business, is not something that will steer you away from your technical domains, right? Either as a engineer or a scientist. But it's something that is good. It's important to understand now in the context of your disciplines. And these 2 books in particular are important to review if you are thinking about getting more into that entrepreneurship or entrepreneurial space, getting more into thinking how you can create a business, how you can create a startup, how you can start, testing your ideas and creating a business that you can bring to market. And the Lean Startup book by Eric Ries is pretty much one of the best books at the moment to understand how to create a startup. And this book by Steve Blank, The 4 Steps to the Epiphany, has become one of the most influential and practical books at the moment. on how to create a startup, especially for science and engineering-based spaces. So, and what Steve Blank and Eric Ries pretty much indicate in their books is that this concept of creating a business is a development process, is a search process in which we go from just understanding a problem and creating a solution and proposing some ideas of value that we can then start understanding how our products, how our solutions will fit a particular market. And therefore, with that, how we can start building a business, how can we can start building what most people in this space know as a business model. And a business model that has pretty much replaced what people in the past knew was a business proposal or a business plan. So nowadays, we typically don't see business plans, which used to be 15 to 50 pages of narrative to explain what you could do with some idea, or what you could do with some product, or what you could do with some business. But it's all been summarized to just this one page, one framework that will help you understand and will help others understand what you're trying to do in terms of what value you are trying to create, what customer segments or user segments you're trying to address with your technology or with your product or with your solution, what key activities you are engaging in, what partners you're going to be working with, what your cost structure is, and what your revenue streams are going to be. So if you're thinking about creating a startup and you think that oh wow, creating a business model or creating a business plan is something that you thought you need to do, it's just this one page that is going to help you understand how that business can and will look like. And as an example, this is a case of Tesla, very complex company, but in terms of understanding their business, it all can be summarized into this business model canvas or business model chart. So then connecting the dots, we have talked about innovation as a process and design thinking as one of those processes that you can use to start understanding problems, empathizing with people to understand their problems, defining solutions and ideating solutions to those problems, and then the lean startup method that I mentioned from Eric Ries or Steve Blank, and the business model canvas as ways of experimenting with a concept of a business that you can test the best conditions for it to be successful. So and you'll see that everything is being structured in a way that you don't have to jump into the space of innovation or entrepreneurship thinking that is going to be all unknown and just risks. Entrepreneurship is about minimizing risks, understanding risks, rather than getting into a space that is going to be unknown and too risky. And I would say it's mainly the entrepreneurs or people that want to get into entrepreneurship that don't know these frameworks or don't know these approaches that fail, right? But if you get into something understanding the frameworks and the tools and the resources, you'll see that it's much more structured and easier to be successful. So this chart is basically just to show you the steps of startup development and for you to reflect on where you are. If you're thinking about the startup, perhaps if you already have a team, if you already have a startup, where are you? Are you just coming up with a product or an idea of product, or are you already testing your product? Are you beginning to grow your startup? Scaling your startup. So and the point with this slide is that every startup, every idea will follow these stages, and people that are willing to help you will be able to help you in any of these stages. So finally, just to wrap up, I want to share with you some resources that are available if you are in any of those stages. For example, if you're a student and you have ideas, or you have been working in a research lab or lab, and you have some idea or some product or some prototype that you want to continue to explore, what would be the market potential, what would be the opportunity to work on that as a startup or as a venture. We at VentureWell have, for example, resources in the form of funding and training to support you in multiple steps that can be from just figuring out and understanding the value of what you are creating, or understanding whether or not a business model can be created around the product or service or gadget that you are building. The National Science Foundation has also programs like this program called I-Corp that gives pretty much $50,000 to NSF grantees, mainly grad students and postdocs, to start transitioning their research out of the lab and into the marketplace. And it's a 7-week boot camp, very intense boot camp, where postdocs and grad students can learn how to start assessing the commercial potential of their research. The Department of Energy has a number of programs, and this one in particular is a competition, something that can give you an opportunity to start testing your skills, testing whether or not you are getting an entrepreneurial mindset, or if you have an entrepreneurial mindset, or if you are applying innovation concepts, innovation as a process. And just an example of a competition that you will be able to interact with our students, be able to interact with people thinking in similar ways like you. And finally, important to understand that in the ecosystem, we call it the innovation ecosystem. There are going to be resources in every step, in every stage that you are. Either if you are just at an idea stage, if you're a student with an idea, or if you are a young professional with already a product or startup or a business, there are resources. There are plenty of resources and plenty of people willing to help and willing to support, especially science, technology, engineering-based startups. And finally is this concept of corporate innovation, especially for those that are planning to join a company. Most corporations, most big companies, I'm talking about Boeing, Dow, DuPont, Johnson & Johnson, they all have now corporate innovation teams, corporate innovation strategies, because they have realized that this process helps them understand problems, helps them understand solutions that are novel and differentiated, and with that gain competitiveness in their industries and markets. But the slide here shows at least 10 different areas within companies where you can gain experiences, where you can gain or even build a career, and that is within an innovation team, within a center of excellence, or becoming part of an entrepreneurship or entrepreneurial program, or just taking a role as a technology scout, or corporate venture group, or startup acquisition. Those are new opportunities within corporations where you can create a career. So I think we are at a time. I typically share this in many sessions, but it's been a great opportunity to have at least an hour or 45 minutes to share this with you. Dora, so this is all I have, and perhaps we can move into questions now.
All right, so in the chat box, we have a few questions here. Let's see. Actually, I don't see them at the moment.
Yeah, don't be shy.
So our audience, bring in those questions. We'll give him a minute. Well, Dorn, while we're waiting, I just want to give a reminder to make sure that our audience joins us at the National Convention for the Entrepreneurial Track that you're going to help us build, and you will definitely be presenting in that. So very excited about that. I see a question come in. As an undergraduate student, where should I start in developing that entrepreneurial mindset?
In many ways, but the first thing I would say is to look for resources on campus. I think I mentioned this during the presentation, that I can tell you at least 350 universities that we work with closely in the US have entrepreneurship programs or have a innovation or entrepreneurship center or a maker space or some sort of activity that will help students build and have experiences to build an entrepreneurial mindset. What I have seen is that many times Hispanic students, Latino students don't take advantage of that. And my recommendation will be to then reach out to those places to ask for the resources and the extracurricular activities that they have that will help you start creating an entrepreneurial mindset, which typically is the result of having the experience, right? Most of these centers within the universities, either an innovation center, entrepreneurship center, maker space, they have programs and they have extracurricular activities for students that will allow you to do that. And those activities can be something called, for example, a hackathon, where they bring students together to start looking at problems, to start understanding problems and coming up and with solutions and ideating solutions to those problems, and building teams. So that helps you practice your skills of understanding problems or of coming up with solutions, and doing it not just by yourself, but as a team. Gives you the skills of team building. And then it takes you through different stages of from having an idea to assess the idea against a potential market, and then helps you start creating a business and practicing these ideas of creating a business model and testing a business model for a startup. So plenty of resources. My recommendation is to reach out, to go to those places and ask and make the time, make the time for you to take advantage of those resources.
Okay, we have another question here. A lot of times it can be intimidating to go into these spaces. When you have an idea, it can be hard to find people or networks that can help. I know you mentioned a couple of programs, but what if you want to get serious with your idea? What networks, conferences would you recommend to meet venture capitalists?
Oh, another good question. So depending on where you are, if you are just playing with an idea, for example, there are regional programs. For example, the SBA, Small Business Administration, has programs in every city. You can reach out to the office of the SBA local office and just ask for resources. And many times they have mentors, coaches. If you're still affiliated to a university, that's probably the best place to go. And nowadays, universities have programs that are not just for the university, but also for the town or for the state or for the city. That's another place to go. And I can tell you that if you are a scientist or engineer, if you are Hispanic and you are trying to build a company, people are going to be chasing you to give you resources and tools and support because most programs are trying to increase the participation of minorities in innovation and entrepreneurship. So I would say it's a really good opportunity to reach out to those places. And yes, it might be scary, it might be difficult, and you might feel intimidated to participate. But people are more than willing to to help you and to support you if you show that you are really committed to your venture or to bringing your technology or product to market. So don't be shy. Take advantage of the many opportunities that are available, especially again if you are Hispanic, as a scientist or engineer, and you have the resources. You have a good idea. And also the federal government has many programs. One program in particular that I didn't mention is called the SBIR program. It's the Small Business Innovation Research Program, SBIR. And basically the program supports individuals, any individual in science and engineering that want to start creating a technology or a technology-based product. Gives you money up to, I believe, $1.5 million to build your prototypes and to build your technologies at a very basic level and show that it will have major impact on society, and also will create new solutions for industries and for the U.S. competitiveness. And then you can use that to jumpstart your idea or your company. And venture capitalists, you mentioned or asked about venture capitalists. They're also willing to help. Those are typically individuals that have gone through the process, understand the process, and if they see someone that is really committed and motivated to their venture or to their product and to their markets or to a specific problem that they want to solve, they will help you in every step that you need. Any additional question, Dora?
Sorry, a big shout out to Case Western Reserve University. So they really enjoyed your presentation, and they want to know what made you passionate in entrepreneurship.
Oh, really good question. I did my research in Texas, and I was developing some vaccines in my research that I really wanted to understand how to bring that to market and understand the process to possibly start a company with that research that I was doing, that I saw and perceived the potential value that it could create on society. But I didn't have the tools, the mentorship, the resources at that time, so that the day that I graduated, I said to myself that I would move to California to learn that, and that's what I did. I finished my PhD in chemistry in Texas, and the week after that, I was driving to California, to San Francisco, where I spent about 10 years understanding innovation, entrepreneurship, especially for science and technology-based industries. And I would say it's been a phenomenal career and really interesting experience to understand how to help students in any STEM discipline or professionals in several STEM disciplines move their research into the marketplace or create businesses with the results of their research. Working with universities, working with startups, working with the federal government, and working with companies that are now more than ever interested in collaborating with academia in creating novel solutions to problems that they face or to markets that they work with. So that's what motivated me to move into this space. And then in the process, I have learned also that there are so many opportunities for underrepresented minorities, especially students in the innovation process, because innovation is synonymous of diversity. We need different ideas, we need different perspectives to be able to come up with solutions that are novel, unique, and different. And that is only going to be possible if we have the participation of different types of people, people with different experiences. And I want to help more of the students coming from underrepresented communities, especially gender minorities or ethnic minorities, to be able to have an opportunity to be able to participate in what we call the innovation economy.
Okay, Dorn, I have to ask, where in Texas did you get your PhD?
Baylor in Texas.
Okay, big shout out to Baylor.
Yes.
All right, folks. So my favorite quote today was "Pregunta y verás." So
Pregunta y verás. Sí.
Yes. Okay, there you go, Ship Familia. Please join me in thanking Dorn. Outstanding job, bravo.
Gracias.
Excellent resources, suggested literature, and tips for our members. So Ship Familia, please remember to take our survey. You will receive a thank you email with the survey link after the webinar. We need your feedback to make this program the best it can be. We hope to see you April 24th for webinar number 4. Making a name for yourself, which focuses on building your personal brand. Signing off from Ship National. Buenas noches, Ship Familia.
Thank you, Dora. Thank you, everyone.